Don Cheadle goes insane and attacks people with an axe. I think that's pretty much the movie.
Ask about Illuminati, since the charting of Beatles. Is it Disney mind control? Is this MK Ultra Deluxe? Occult Disney, we go from real to real. Occult Disney, Bohemian Grove and no more real. Occult Disney, ask about Illuminati. Occult Disney, we teach occult to everybody. Occult Disney, the wish upon a star. Occult Disney, you know not to travel far. Oh, Occult Disney, the new brand Pinocchio. Yeah, yeah. Occult Disney, it's above so below. Occult Disney, please enjoy the show.
Hello, welcome to the Occult Disney podcast, where we put the mouse in a rocket and send it to Mars and see what happens, and maybe to other planets as well. This is Matt here. Over there, it's the Paranoid American. How you, Marsin?
This one's about Lieutenant Dan and Jesus.
Lieutenant Dan with eyeliner. Did that kind of, that stuck in my craw the entire movie. First off, I think I liked this movie. I remember seeing it in the theater and liking it, and then all the reviews were bad and everyone was hated it, and over years I the movie must suck. And watching it again, I was like, I still kind of like this movie. What do you think?
I felt like it was about, like I was agreeing with those critics until about the halfway point. And then after the halfway point, I was like, okay, this is a good movie. I have to say, the second that I put it on, not knowing anything about it, I've never seen him before. I've never even heard about it before this. So when I was just going to look and see what year it came out and all that, it was hard to ignore the 40% rating that it got from both critics and audience scores on some of the sites I was looking at, like a 4 out of 10, essentially, maybe a 5 out of 10.
If lower if you go to Rotten Tomatoes.
It's like right. It was not rated very good at all. So maybe I was biased a little bit going in, but as soon as I started it, I was like, 2 hours. What do you possibly have to say about Mission to Mars in 2 hours? About an hour in, I got it, but I still think that they could have trimmed about a half hour off the front end of this thing. But I actually did end up liking this damn movie.
And I think the reason I went to see it, one, of course, I like sci-fi, and then 2000 when it came out, I just would have been like in like auteur mode. Brian De Palma directed it. I have to see the new Brian De Palma movie, which, I mean, okay, if we're being real about Brian De Palma movies, it's not his best by any means. I mean, he made frickin' Scarface, right? Sisters. Those are much better movies. But this is good. It's a well-directed movie. You know, because we do so much animation. So Miyazaki's a master director, of course. Musker and Clements deserve to be put in a conversation for talk, but we haven't really done just a straight up auteur directed film. You know, De Palma, I guess, the trashier side of auteur, but he gets the title, right?
I mean, this one doesn't count. I don't think if you were ever to bring up his repertoire, this movie should not end up making that list, because they do kind of, in my opinion, they squander these great actors. They bring together a serious cast in this movie, and it just doesn't do it for me. Like with these names, I've seen them all in movies where individually they've blown my socks off. And this one, I almost feel like all the actors could have been no names and the movie still would have worked. We didn't need Don Cheadle. We didn't need Tim Robbins. In fact, some of the lines that they delivered that are supposed to be really impactful, I kind of was rolling my eyes every time just because the pacing is a little all over the place. And again, Gary Sinise is wearing a lot of eyeliner, it looks like. So it was hard to take it serious in the moments that you'd be like, okay, here's why we spent all this budget on Tim Robbins. Say the line. Like none of those really hit me the same way that I would have expected them to with this cast. So is that a director problem or what?
I feel like maybe it was like a, you know, Janet Leigh thing with Tim Robbins, like, oh, you won't expect that we're going to kill him right in the middle, you know, because, and again, that's a De Palma thing to do. But I need Cheadle. I wouldn't replace Cheadle. Like you said, Gary Sinise, glad you answered the eyeliner question, by the way, because we got on
is it actually eyeliner? Sometimes I'll see an actor and I'll be like, that guy's wearing eyeliner, and you look it up and they just have eyes.
That's the guy who's the mayor of Gotham City in The Dark Knight. He's in Lost. That's who you're thinking of, Nestor or something. I can't remember his last name. But it's Nestor
funny that you know exactly who it
He's
is.
the eyeliner guy. Great actor, by the way. But yeah, when you see that guy, you're like, why is he wearing so much mascara? And you're like, no, that's just him.
Is that just Gary, or is he actually wearing eyeliner here?
But like you said, Lieutenant Dan didn't have eyeliner, so I feel like it's not Gary. Fun story. We were at a home shop about 10 years ago. My wife wanted to try this mascara, see what this mascara whatever looked like. So she was like, here, let me put it on you. I want to see what it looks like. And then she tried to wipe it off and it wouldn't come off. So I just went around looking like a Clockwork Orange for the afternoon.
A little emo, whatever. It's kind of normal.
Emo, yeah. but yeah, that's my personal eyeliner experience.
Well, I did notice that, and I felt like maybe the reason was because there were some CG moments in this movie, and CG, either the budget wasn't very high, or maybe the technology just hadn't come along. I feel like Jurassic Park was out by now, so they could have done the CG a little bit better.
But remember, Jurassic Park is like 30 or 40% CG. They build a lot of stuff for that. A lot of what you see in Jurassic Park is practical. This one is a little more all CG, and that's the difference. Do you use CG as a tool like Jurassic Park, where it still looks perfect, basically, or do you just do too much? This had a budget of 100 million in 1999, I guess, when they would have been making it. So I feel like they maybe just depended too much on the computers.
Well, I feel like the eyeliner was just a CGI version of Kabuki Theater, where they're like, we're going to need a shot later on in the movie where Gary Sinise is going to look kind of weird. So as long as we establish eyeliner as this visual cue, then we can fudge some of the details, because he'll still come across as being that character, because you'll see this outline of his eyes.
Well, here's what Wiki does not have much to say on this movie. I looked a few other places. I got a few other things, but this I guess sheds some light. In a 2015 interview, De Palma was brought on board after the previous director, Gore Verbinski, walked away due to concerns about the lack of additional money for the budget. De Palma indicated that the film needed additional funds, and much of that budget went into CGI for the film. When De Palma was hired, the script had already been written and the film already cast. So he's not doing those. When I do say it feels like a De Palma, I'm basically talking about the shots and the inner scene pacing, not the pacing in the whole movie, but how the scenes themselves are paced. You can tell who's behind the camera. But yeah, he is kind of a hired gun here. So like you said, it doesn't really deserve to be thrown into his A-list of movies.
This is like Kubrick's Spartacus, right? Where Kubrick didn't get to do the whole thing. He kind of got brought in to fix it as it went off the rails.
Yes, and he probably did a better job than De Palma did here. But again, I do like this movie, so I'm going to go to bat for this one and defend it a bit. Is it perfect? By no means. But is it good? Yeah, sure, it's good. Why not? Anyway, the eyeliner thing just might be because Gore Verbinski would go on to... We'll meet him when we do Pirates of the Caribbean in a few weeks, so...
Okay, the mystery continues.
Yeah. Speaking of that, rides, of course, we're doing all these for Disneyland's 70th anniversary. So let's do the ride movies. Did you ride the original Mission to Mars, or did you get on Mission Space? Because I feel like this movie is basically Mission Space. Mission Space also featuring Gary Sinise as your comm.
I did Mission to Space, and actually I think I did both of them, but I don't remember Mission to Mars as much. I remember Mission to Space because we went on it right after it replaced Mission to Mars, which was like a long process.
Oh, the replacement's more depressing than that. It replaced Horizons.
I'm not even sure if I remember what that is either.
Oh, Horizons was the long, boring, dark ride that showed the future, and at the end you choose if you want to go to the space future, the sea future, the desert future. And they claim that the ride closed because the building was built over a sinkhole. Like, I mean, maybe it wasn't
ancient burial ground, one of the two.
ancient burial ground. But yeah, they had to take the building was like collapsing or something, is what they say. So they did that, fixed it, built Mission to Space, and that ride gives you a migraine if you go on the red side.
Yeah, no, I actually agree 100%. Since we're talking about movies based on rides, the Mission to Space in Orlando, I don't know how many other parks.
It's only Orlando.
Okay, thank God. But essentially, it feels a little bit like a design your own roller coaster simulator in a way, because you get to decide how rough your travel is going to be, and you get to kind of decide how intense the ride overall is going to make you feel. But it's not a true simulator. It's just kind of on the ground, and it can shift around up and down, and it can shake, and it can get loud, and they strap you to this slightly uncomfortable like backing. So yeah, when it starts to like rattle around really hard, it's just kind of like slamming your head a little bit. It's not comfortable, and I think the first time might have been the last time I rode it, just because my first thought was, and we did this instead of going on Rock and Roller Coaster, for what reason?
Oh no. No, I remember I did ride it like shortly after it opened. And then of course it was exciting with the new ride. We were like, oh wow, it kills people or whatever, right? I went back several years later and we rode it and we were like, oh, this sucks. So, you know, it did have a little new car smell the first time I did it, but after that, no, thank you. The other one that gives me migraine is Mickey's PhilharMagic. Something about the 3D in that doesn't quite work. So whenever anything pops at the screen, I'm like, and it gives me a headache.
Again, Orlando one, because I don't know if PhilharMagic is everywhere or just in Orlando, but that's one of those, I'm not going to call it a ride. It's one of those attractions that once it's over, people are just barreling over. It's almost Black Friday style. They were pushing people out of the way to get out of one of those theaters. And so I just don't go in PhilharMagic because I've seen how low the human race can get in that particular attraction.
Okay, no, the Tokyo crowd just stands up and walks out.
Which makes more sense, but that's not how we do it in the States.
No, my beef with that is thing gives me a headache. Don't pop out at the screen because it's like blah, and then everything goes double image. I'm like, so I don't know. My brain just isn't wired for those 3D glasses, I guess.
One of the things that we did on a recent trip to Disney was the Tiki Room, which I don't think I've ever done before. And it is more annoying and infectious than the It's a Small World ride by a large margin.
Ours has Stitch here. Stitch has invaded the Tiki Room. But unlike when what was it, the Lion King or Aladdin birds invaded the Florida one, everyone hated it. People seem to like the Stitch version, although you kind of want the original sometimes, you know? But yeah, this ride, Mission to Mars, was never like a popular ride. Original Disneyland opened where you would go into a room, a circular room on the ground. There's like a screen on the ground and a screen at the top, and it makes the first one just like, we're going into space, right? So by the early 60s, that wasn't so exciting anymore. So that it became Mission to the Moon, right? And once we did or did not land on the moon and they're opening Disney World, like, it can't be the moon. So it becomes Mission to Mars. I know I rode Mission to Mars like when I was, single digit age, possibly up to, actually, I think I rode it twice, but I was age 10 or under. So, and then they replaced that with the Alien Terrarium, the scary ride, the Alien scary ride.
I'm glad to say that I actually went on that when it was at its scariest.
Right, because then they changed that. Stitch invaded that to make it less scary.
Alien Encounter, was that what it was called?
Yeah, somehow they fit the word terror into it in a extra terror. I can't say the actual title, so maybe that's one of the reasons it wasn't successful.
So out of place. It felt like a little section of Epcot that turned into Universal. That's kind of what it felt like.
And there was talk to, that can that be a Giger alien ride? But that didn't come
it was
through,
in Tomorrowland, right? Not Epcot. It was in Tomorrowland.
Oh, I'd say it was in Tomorrowland, yeah. But yeah, I don't know what it is. Did they still got the Stitch one there? I don't know. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, it's even when they made the movie Mission to Mars, there was no Mission to Mars ride anymore. Maybe they should have called it Mission Space and done more corporate synergy. that's a crappier title though, isn't it?
Well, we were just talking about with the screen on the ceiling and the screen on the floor that makes you feel like you're going into outer space. That's actually now the waiting room for Space 21, which is one of these high-end in-park restaurants that Disney has. So as they're clearing your table or whatever to get ready for you to sit down,
So
they
even
send you into
Stitch is gone.
a little area and they play that little loop where you're flying out into outer space and you're going to go and eat in orbit, and then they let you into the dining room. So maybe they just repurposed part of that ride and turned it into a restaurant.
Tokyo Disney does have Stitch Encounter, which is notorious for highly disappointing visiting foreigners, because if they know Disney, they're expecting the animatronic that was on that experience, right? The alien Stitch, they're expecting that. They don't get that. What they get is just a screen with Stitch, and people ask him questions in Japanese, and then he answers in Japanese. So people are very disappointed when they go to that attraction. And I think it's like in Tomorrowland, it's in like the same location that the Florida Stitch one was. So people go in expecting that and getting not that, and everything's aggressively in Japanese.
I mean, I think all of these rides are better in American. I just got to say it.
Well, it is funny. Like if you see like the Country Bears, which we'll be talking about in a few weeks too. But it's like the songs will do like
Japanese?
one. Yes, they speak Japanese most of the time. The songs they'll do like a verse in Japanese, a verse in English. So they will do the English songs too. You know, so it's like you get a verse of Achy Breaky Heart in Japanese, and then you get a verse of Achy Breaky Heart in English.
Now, do they sing country with Japanese accents, or do they speak Japanese with country accents? Because there's a very specific kind of yokel voice that you do to imply that not only are they a redneck, but they're a dumb redneck, and that's kind of the personality of some of these bears. Like Pat Buttram, I guess, like he kind of nailed that when in the voice, right? And I just can't imagine like a Japanese interpretation of a dumb yokel redneck. You know what I mean? I don't know how that would sound.
Keep in mind, it changes from country to country. So there's the David Cross routine about like, I'm from Bozeman, Montana. This is how we talk down there. I'm from Norcross, Georgia. This is how we talk down there. How like all the rednecks talk the same, right? But then in say England, it's like, isn't it more like a northern accent? You know, the coarse accent is the northern accent. You know, like they make a big deal of that in Battlestar Galactica, which they don't say in England because there's no England there. But where Baltar's like, here's how I really talk, and he goes into like a northern English accent or something. It's like that's the British. Well, that's the farmer guy, which a little different than the redneck, I guess. We don't expect him to just pull out a gun, get in a pickup truck or anything like that. But
that's the fun kind. Yeah, that's the fun kind of redneck.
Yeah. So I am that. In Japan, I just think it's like kind of the gruff Oji-san. So I think they put the gruff Oji-san, but he's got to be a little charming too. So there's the rural accent would be somewhat different in Japan. And you know what? When we're doing Country Bears in like 2 weeks, I'll go watch it on YouTube and then check out what kind of accent they're doing. I got people I can ask that live in this house if I need to. So I'll get back to you on that. But how about Mission to Mars? I guess we should focus on that this week. And we talked about the ride. I guess we talk a little bit about the story. Is this where we should break the story down a bit?
Sure. Let's see. Story is that they're going to Mars. Something goes wrong. They discover that they go to Cydonia, which is where that face on Mars is supposed to be.
Yeah, I was going to say they go straight to Cydonia, which I'm like, man, the government would never allow that, man. But it's like,
and what's cool is that they find out that there's this huge group of metal, this like huge sheet of metal right under the surface where this big face on Mars is. And then we see a huge Mars tornado that turns into like a weird sandworm vortex that literally rips somebody's arms and legs off. It doesn't get super bloody, but you can tell
that was a De Palma move for sure.
So you see this guy. So I was like, okay, I'm on board a little bit. I was not expecting to see someone be completely dismembered in a Disney movie. I granted it's Touchstone, but like it's a Disney movie. And
It's based on a Disney ride.
we see this guy get dismembered, and then we find out that there's this actual metallic face under the mountain. Like once you get all of the rock and all the minerals off of it, there's a metallic face under there. And at the center of the face is a little alien spaceship that also has a little face on it. And that this big face has been emitting the human DNA sequence as an audio signal. And it was broadcast because it was waiting for someone to detect it and then fill in. It was like a puzzle. They had to fill in what was missing from this DNA structure. Once they do that, it opens up. They go inside like it's a 2001 Space Odyssey, huge white room. Gary Sinise ends up meeting an alien, and he's like, I'm going to go with the aliens. And then we see the rest of the guys leave, go back onto a small little like luggage vessel, and then survive, ... And also Don Cheadle goes insane and attacks people with an axe. I think that's pretty much the movie.
I'm just going to keep coming back. I think we do need Cheadle in this movie. Cheadle's the one we need. Everyone else, you can take or leave, you know. But I need me a few minutes of crazy Cheadle. That was good. Cheadle gone wild. I like that.
Yeah, I appreciate again that happened right around the halfway point. The first half of this movie is just a bunch of stuff going wrong in space. One of them was a little bit weird. Tim Robbins is using, this is pre-iPad, I think, right? I don't know. But he's using this big like glass touchscreen device, and as he's touching it, this is Jerry O'Connell. Sorry, Jerry O'Connell is using this glass. And as they're doing this, I guess a meteorite or something metallic, it looks like, flies through the ship, through the back of someone's helmet, not while they're wearing it, and then through this glass, and it hits him right in the middle of the hand, stigmata style. And then he immediately starts searching around for any leaks because now the ship is becoming depressurized. It turns into this whole thing. That's kind of the first hour of the movie, is getting up to that point and showing that like, oh, they're in danger in space. The guy getting dismembered, the blood coming out of Jerry O'Connell's hand and like slowly swirling into the place where there's, a leak, and it turns into this little vortex of blood. Like, it's kind of like cool stuff, a very cheesy CGI. But then we find out that the freaking face under the mask in Cydonia is a real metallic object, and that's when the movie picks up.
Hey, Dr. Pepper in space? That doesn't make sense. On a Mars mission? Okay.
There's a very obvious product placement for Dr. Pepper in this movie.
There's no way that's on board. Yeah, I really like that ship sequence, like as they're going to Mars. Like you said, it's maybe a little draggy and a little weird, but it felt very 50s sci-fi flick. Not they just be like, oh, a micrometeorite hit me. They wouldn't show you the blood in the 50s movie, but it felt very 50s sci-fi, Destination Moon or something, where you have the trip and there's like these little things, and it's like halfway through when you actually get to the planet stuff. That's like half the sci-fi is from that decade.
There was another weird scene that I couldn't figure out what actually happened. And it's when they're still in the spacecraft, they're able to stabilize everything, and they're like, all right, let's get the heck out of here. And it zooms out and it shows this icicle. And the icicle, it doesn't matter what it was. I can't remember if it was O2 or if it was hydrogen or if it was just water. But as soon as the thrusters fire up and it comes in contact with this tiny little icicle, it creates this huge, big explosion. And then this basically ruins their ability to get home in that particular craft. And they have to kind of abandon ship in a way. But I was looking into what could possibly cause an explosion like that from the size of an icicle, and nothing. I think the answer is nothing. So this huge pivotal moment in which things go from bad to worse is kind of based on something that I think that wasn't very well researched. Again, for the amount of money that they spent in CG and actors and a 2-hour timeline, and something funded by Disney and Touchstone, it seemed like something that at least Magic School Bus would have got right.
Well, one director left on that, I guess.
Over the icicle?
Theoretically, the worst director. Oh, not over that, but over the budget and stuff, right? But excuse me. I don't know. There's if we're talking space conventionally, space is out there to kill you. It's like in the 2009 Trek movie with Bones, like it's all death and suffering or whatever he says in there. I mean, if you're in Mars, I mean, chances are you might have some weird, catastrophic technical glitch.
Well, with this, we do see a lot of people die, right? A lot of people die.
I think that's got to be why it's got the touchstone lightning on it, not Disney, even though it is. Well, what they said is this being the first theatrical ride movie, the posters and things said inspired by the Disney attraction. Like, oh, it's inspiration for us to make this completely new movie, which I guess is what they keep doing to a certain extent. You could say Pirates of the Caribbean does that just to better returns.
It would have been way cooler if the Mission to Mars ride or space ended with a frozen Tim Robbins like floating by with his eyes popped.
Well, it doesn't work in continuity because your operations guy is Gary Sinise on that ride, but he's close encountered himself. He's off to the fourth kind or whatever it is now.
Sans eyeliner, I have to mention in the ride, not in the movie.
Oh, Sans, yeah, I was about to say. I was like, did the aliens take his eyeliner away or something? Yeah, he looks like a more proper Gary Sinise in the ride video.
I was wondering, is that why the aliens picked him? Is because he was wearing the eyeliner? They're like, oh, finally, we have found an evolved enough human that understands that we should all be wearing eyeliner.
Finally, you're glam enough. Okay, this 2011 picture of him, it doesn't look like there's any eyeliner. So I think other facts about Gary Sinise, he founded the Lieutenant Dan Band, which goes to military bases, and they just play covers of stuff. And he just plays bass. They have a different singer. Huh.
I want to say he's also an advocate of like 9/11 survivors and some other like military survivors.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking through. So humanitarian work would say, yeah. That's what you said. I can read the glam version if you want, but
yeah. So we like Gary Sinise around here, eyeliner or not.
Okay, he is one of those guys we just lost to television because I'm like, what happened to Gary Sinise? And it seems that he was on, as you would expect, he was on CSI forever. So that's what happened to Gary Sinise.
He's been killing it, man. He's been printing money. What do you want from him?
Yeah, really. And I heard this, I think on podcasts, or I think he's a Disney daddy. Is that listed in here? Which is a weird thing to list.
What's a Disney daddy?
I don't know. He just has he's been recognized by the Walt Disney Company for being a Disney daddy, which doesn't make sense. Now I'm looking
at this movie.
No, he's not a daddy. No, not the character in this movie. I'm talking about the actor. Tim Robbins is kind of another. Did Tim Robbins just get old? What happened to Tim Robbins? These are kind of like not Cheadle. We see Cheadle because he's stuck in the MCU, but the other guys in here, it's like, oh yeah, we see them a lot more, didn't we? Tim Robbins way down the list here, huh?
Jerry O'Connell too. He kind of started in TV and never really broke out into movies in a huge way.
Tim Robbins is currently in Silo, which
let him out.
Really popular one. I think that's the point of the show. Let him out. What are they doing in there? Haven't seen it yet, so that's all I know. Okay, now I want to look at O'Connell. Yeah, because we saw a lot of O'Connell back in the day. Starring role in Piranha 3D. This is why he voices a role on Star Trek Lower Decks. I knew there was something recent I'd heard him in. I guess I didn't see him in that, did I?
I gotta point out that Jerry O'Connell in this movie does seem like a Christ-like figure. I'm not gonna say he goes through all the same motions of Jesus Christ, but here's what happens is he gets that stigmata, which is literally the exact spot in the middle of his hand. It starts gushing blood out. He gets the stigmata, and then he immediately suggests that the solution is to kill the ship and bring it back to life, to resurrect the ship. And he goes out and he actually does that. And then in the scene when he's getting ready to go outside the ship in order to pull the plug and connect it again, he actually floats with his feet together and his arms like stretched out as he's traversing this little hallway inside the ship. So like this Jesus Christ symbolism kept getting put on top of Jerry O'Connell. I doubt it was intentional, but it was there.
Well, again, we're talking to Palma, who made stuff like Sisters, so maybe he did mean it. This is a case where I'm like, I don't know. I think he might have intentionally done that. I was thinking. I think the thing with Jerry O'Connell is Jerry O'Connell and Chris O'Donnell kind of canceled each other out. Like you can't keep the two straight because the names are too similar.
Yeah.
It's also how in this Naked Gun reboot, it's like, oh, it's Leslie Nielsen before, so now it's Liam Neeson, and then your brain breaks after you say those two names together.
I like it. I like that story arc a little bit.
There's Jerry O'Connell, Chris O'Donnell. It makes you feel like you're losing your ability of speech or something.
There's another name in this movie. I don't know if it's in the credits, but whoever does the voice for the ship, for some reason, they didn't just go with a generic computer voice. They went with somebody that was putting emotion a little bit into the ship speaking back to them. And I actually had a note here that I think they hired the son of Jimmy Two Times from Goodfellas because it would just kept saying things over and over. Prepare for burn. Prepare for burn. And every single thing that it said, it sounded like a person in a mic booth recording it. It didn't sound like this weird synthetic voice that you'd expect. And there was also a very specific point. Maybe I was just looking too much into this, but it's telling them that, pressurization in the spaceship, they needed to be at like 100% is where it starts. And they start leaking all this air. So as they're leaking the air, this voice gets progressively more concerning and loud, and there's alarms and there's like red lights flashing. So it's like 30%, 30% air, critical. And then after they patch the hole up, it goes from like 10% to 20%, and then it goes back to that 30% again. But this time it's like 30%, air being restored or whatever. And then my first thought was that, wouldn't you need it to let you know, like, hey, things are still really bad right now, only 30%. But somehow, I guess they're implying that there's AI that was able to add context to the fact that 30%, but up from 10%, and things are starting to look on the up and up. So even the voice reflects that, versus the voice when they hit 30% the first time was like, you're all going to die.
They hired Bill Timoney for that. It says here the best known of his roles was the character of Alfred Vanderpool on All My Children. In a weird fact, the musical team Boyz II Men drew inspiration from Timoney's Vanderpool, and Nathan Morris, one of its tenors, used the stage name Alex Vanderpool in the character's honor early in the team's career. Timoney portrayed Vanderpool, known as the preppy nerd of Pine Valley, from 1982 to 1987, and then later as a cameo. So I don't know if I guess what you're saying kind of makes a little sense in that context.
They could have replaced them with just a text-to-speech app and called it a day. Seriously, it sort of took me out of it, because then I was thinking, man, this AI sounds a lot like there's a guy in a vocal booth somewhere inside the ship that's just narrating what's actually happening, and it's not a computer voice.
How do you feel about the interstellar robots, where they really doubled down on that? He's like, please dial your sarcasm back to 60%,
I'm for that, because they explained it like that. This one, again, came out much earlier, where AI was not necessarily as close as we're at. So it just sounded weird that the voice of the ship had these different sort of contexts. So I don't know. It took me out of it. Like, as I'm watching the movie, like, oh, that's cheesy. The way that voice sounds right now, that's cheesy. I'm going to write down that it's cheesy.
So in the year 2000, touchscreens were still pretty impressive. I think, you'd go to Epcot and you'd use a touchscreen to make your dinner reservation. And it was amazing. So I think it was still a little high tech when they have them here as the buttons. But I was thinking, isn't that really impractical in a spaceship not to have? I mean, you want to have like a latch and a button, you want like. But then I was like, the Dragon does touchscreens now, doesn't it?
Everything's touchscreen now.
Somehow for me, space seems more terrifying with a touchscreen. I mean, how often do I do dumb stuff on my phone, right? Like, I didn't mean to open that app.
Slips and now you're dead. That just seems like something we would do.
I mean, think of, Apollo 13, where he puts a little, do not switch this little piece of tape on there. So he makes sure not to switch that button, So, anyway, I was thinking, that's something at first I was like, oh, that's not realistic. You'd want a heart. And I'm like, wait, that might actually be how people do this, So looking ahead, I guess. How did you feel? I do feel when I saw this in the theater in 2000, I was like, oh, I felt like that was a nice, realistic version of how we, except for the fantastic stuff at the end, or is it? But I thought the space in this was like relatively cool and in line, you know? Maybe this is kind of like a precursor to later stuff we get like Gravity or Interstellar, you know? Europa
Yeah.
Report, there's a good one.
What was the movie with Matt Damon too, where he goes to Mars and he's trying to
The Martian, yeah, that's certainly,
The
he
Martian.
makes his poop potatoes, yeah.
This
Which
one-
Cheadle's basically doing here, right?
Right, that's
Cheadle's doing
exactly
the
what I
same
was
thing.
thinking. Is that like Don Cheadle ran so that Matt Damon could walk and grow poop potatoes.
Right. Yeah. It gets a little compressed here. We're just like, I've been here for a while and I'm crazy. And then they have to talk him down. And then 2 minutes later, he's like kind of okay now. Right. So,
Well, okay. So that's one of the art, and it's just a weird pacing thing. And I'm glad that the movie didn't get any longer so that this pacing wouldn't feel as weird. But yeah, people come to grips very quickly with their own peril in this movie and the fact that they're against all odds. Like, after they abandon ship for the first time, they're all remarkably cool and calm about it. They form a little conga line and they're just making rational decisions and having a very rational conversation. I would assume that at least one person would go crazy at this point or just, not be a team player. And
that's why they did not cast Bill Paxton. Bill Paxton.
Okay, because you would have expected on Randy Quaid, maybe throw Randy Quaid in the mix a little bit.
Maybe they should have.
We see Don Cheadle is the one guy that goes crazy, but we see, I think it's like 13 months later or something that he had been left in this little bio tent where he becomes this Matt Damon character that's trying to grow plants. They rediscover it, but he's got a huge afro and a long beard, and he's got a crazy look in his eye, and he's basically convinced himself that no one else is real. So when his old crewmates run into him, he runs at him with an axe right away, and they have to kind of talk him down. But they talk him down within 2 minutes, and then he's like completely normal and completely rational again. So it was just kind of taking me out of how like the weird extremes. They would go from this guy is completely out of his mind to like, okay, he's a dedicated NASA scientist again in the space of like 30 seconds. Like you could just see him sort of snap out of it, and then now they're acting normal again.
Well, back in 2020, you see, when this movie takes place, NASA had just gotten very good at psychological evaluations for their astronauts. I mean, they're like, Gary Sinise is a mess, right? Because his wife suddenly died or whatever, but he's still got it. He's pretty together, right?
I guess.
Just assuming it's a problem.
Wearing eyeliner to work, but we're just not going to talk about that.
Yeah, okay. If that's the weirdest thing he's doing, you can that's him being a little emo, right? You can be a little emo. He's a widower.
I don't know, man. I honestly feel that if you became a widower and you start wearing eyeliner and you're slated to go on to the next NASA mission, they probably bump you.
As they did. I just have to mention when we do see the weird Martian sandworm come, I did have to write the note, did they land on Arrakis or something instead, because very Dune vibes for that scene.
I haven't figured out the perfect connection yet, but I do feel like there's a weird Toy Story connection because we've got Tim Robbins instead of Tim the Toolman as Woody, right? but he's actually a spaceman, so he's kind of like Buzz Lightyear, but his name is Woody. I don't know.
That was the joke.
Well, maybe that's the entire joke. It also feels like the premise of this movie is that they're showing you this incomplete DNA strand and that you need to figure out what it's missing so you can fill that in. So maybe that's part of this. Like Woody being an astronaut played by Tim Robbins, that is this incomplete DNA strand. And we have to figure out how to get Tim the Toolman Taylor and Tom Hanks into this equation somehow.
They should have cast Tom Hanks in the Tim Robbins role. That would have, except he'd already done Apollo 13. So I guess
exactly. And then he doesn't want to dress himself down a little bit. This would be a step down from the Apollo movie. Even though it's Ron Howard to De Palma, right? But it's touchstone to Palma.
Yeah. Ron Howard's he's a good workman, right? Maybe not quite as auteur-y, but he's definitely usually makes a solid movie, right?
I think so. I'm a fan of his movies.
Yeah. There's one or two. Well, okay, yeah, because he finished Solo. Solo is just a mess, so looks good, I guess. It's a good-looking movie. This is a good-looking movie, except for the crappy CGI. So that does take it a far way.
The very beginning too, I made a note that a lot of the shots were very soap opera-y, composition-wise, color grading, the way that it almost had the infinite focus set, like there was no depth of field.
Apollo 13 starts with those, right? So they were probably thinking about that. I also thought about the movie 2010, the sequel to 2001, because it has a very similar scene where the astronaut's about to leave for years and he's talking to his son, right? So they both have that scene. So I did feel like they were maybe riffing on, especially Apollo 13, very successful, wins awards. Let's mirror that a bit for our space movie,
So Don Cheadle goes crazy with an axe. They calm him down within like 30 seconds. And then he immediately starts telling them about this audio signal that he's captured out in space. And that it's these 3 different sequences of 3 different tones that happen like every 3 seconds or something. So he keeps repeating this 333, 333. And that's when he realizes, okay, well, if there's 3 different patterns, then that could be 3 dimensions. So let me plot this sound wave and the patterns I'm detecting in a 3-dimensional graph. And that's when you see that it's forming this huge DNA strand. So you can see that this is partly what's been keeping him alive and also driving him crazy, is trying to figure out exactly. And as soon as that started happening, I was like, this seems like something Matt would do. Like Matt would also detect some weird frequencies out in space if he was trapped on Mars and use it to communicate back with aliens.
Or use it to make sick beats, maybe.
But no. Well, he had an MPC too, or like Fruity Loops, I'm sure, installed on that little laptop of his.
Hey, yeah. You know what? If I was stuck in a weird bioten on Mars for a year, that could definitely
this album's gonna write itself.
This album's gonna write itself. Although then you wouldn't record crap. When you have infinite time, you tend to get nothing done, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that how it always works? Like I know I'll have like a week vacation and do like nothing musically productive, and then like one morning before work where I have 30 minutes, do like 5 important tasks for making tracks.
I like when they were talking about this DNA strand puzzle, one of them made a note of like, oh, it's missing a chromosome. What does that matter? And that sort of common factoid comes up. Well, apes and humans are only different by 3%. And someone makes the comment, yeah, well, that extra 3% gives us Mozart. And then Tim Robbins, I think, maybe it's Jesus O'Connell, says also Jack the Ripper. And my first thought was like, well, they're both Freemasons.
So that extra 33%. Okay.
Yeah,
3.3%.
33%. Yeah.
The 33 would be a notable difference, though.
They
can't use that. So how deep are you in general into Mars stuff? I had about 5 years ago, I think I had a big run-in with reading Mars books and, Cydonia stuff and pyramids and all that.
I dabbled in college. I dabbled in college a little bit, but it kind of stayed there. I'm interested in all the ideas and the face on the moon, but I also believe in, oh man, I can't remember, pareidolia or whatever the thing is where you just see human forms or human faces and things because our brain is meant to find faces and humanoid objects. So I'm kind of one of those, skeptical fuddy-duddies, I think, when it comes to Mars stuff.
I'll say one name, but I won't say 2 names. I've been podcasting for 6 years now. I've only had 2 guest situations where maybe I needed to back away a little bit. One of them, we were covering the movie about Gigi Allen Hated, and I had actually gotten in contact with his brother, and he was kind of weird. So I was like, no, maybe we don't do this. He just started complaining about how he got kicked out of Japan or something. So, and then just kept going on about that. I was like, I don't think this guy's going to want to do a podcast. Other time was a Mars guy.
What's controversial about the Mars angle?
Nothing, just the two times when people seemed a little too nuts to actually seal the deal and do a podcast with them. It was a murder junkie, which makes sense, and a Mars guy, which I guess also kind of makes sense. Yeah, I think it was back when we wanted to do a Total Recall, and we wanted to get a Mars guy on for that, right?
I bet you that Mars guy liked Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Maybe. As we do, a soft plug for the Cartoon Cabal, which if you're listening to the audio, it's in the stream anyway, so we don't have to plug it. It's on your feed too. We don't have to plug it.
It'll be up. Yeah, it'll come up before this one does.
I guess one of the Mars ones I find most interesting is the idea that there are still like synthetic radioactive isotopes on Mars, and they would have had like a nuclear war there however many years ago. You know, I think you can calculate that in the millions, which they kind of allude to in here, right? That something went horribly wrong and the aliens went, or the Martians went, farther out into space.
Well, they show this huge object. I thought it was a huge meteorite that smashes into the planet Mars, because when they walk into the actual face, right, the face gets revealed as a big metallic face, but it's sort of hermetically sealed until they play this tone that lets them know, hey, we solved your riddle. So then this huge doorway opens up, they go inside this face, and while they're inside that face, there's this huge holographic projection of the solar system that surrounds them. And it shows that Mars used to be a planet that looked almost identical to Earth. It had an atmosphere, and it had different biomes, and it had oceans and mountains and greenage and everything. And this huge meteorite smashes into it. And I don't know if this is time lapsed or what, but it basically just shows it turning into this huge desolate wasteland. And then it slowly just turns into Mars. And then right as that's happening, all these different little miniature, like thousands of these little spacecrafts, these UFOs, they leave Mars and they fly off into like a wormhole or something somewhere, except for one's left over, and that one sends DNA into Earth. And then that DNA that the aliens send into Earth after Mars collapses becomes the seed of, and then it shows fish turning into lizards, and the lizards turn into woolly mammoths, and the woolly mammoths turn into buffalo, and humans are chasing the buffalo. So they're basically showing you, and it looks a whole lot like the original director's cut opening scene of Alien Prometheus, which is a really good kind of space alien movie. And it's the exact same premise. The premise is that they're on a dying planet, and they have to launch this DNA superseed stem cell mixture onto Earth to kind of like keep perpetuating whatever this DNA means. So
okay,
I wonder if Prometheus came from this.
Here's what I'm alluding to. This is J.E. Brandenburg. This is a Harvard paper from 2006, where he is arguing that the Xenon 129 in particular is evidence that there would have been at least a nuclear reactor on Mars in the past. It has long been known that the isotopic ratios 129 xenon, 132 xenon, and 40 argon, 36 argon are very high in Mars atmosphere relative to Earth or meteoric backgrounds. This is one of those papers that's too dense to read, but the basic thing he's saying is because that isotope is there, it suggests that there would have been at least a nuclear reactor, if not a nuclear war.
Or a nuclear reaction, which
that could be the meteor coming in, I guess.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a nuclear war or a nuclear reactor. Anything that would cause a nuclear reaction would technically fill that slot.
But yeah, you can call that like fringe science if you feel like it, but it is like a properly, vetted academic paper where someone is putting forth the idea that there might have been some nuclear something going on in Martian past, I
mean, we can put out an academic paper if we really wanted to.
Yeah, but you'd have to get a degree and stuff if you want to make it legit, right?
Oh, we can do that. We can find one on Fiverr.
We can forge them. You're going to forge the degree. That sounds like a winning theory to do. But yeah, I mean, that does just, I mean, again, Total Recall has, the similar vibe to this. It's like a volcano mountain in there, but that they could have just made that the face on Mars. You'd have something like that going on, because what was in Total Recall? It was a terraforming engine. It was, yeah, it was venting oxygen into the air or whatever.
Yeah, I actually think that Total Recall had a better death scene than the Tim Robbins scene on this one. Total Recall maybe had a much higher budget for.
That is one of the
their
best
special
death
effects.
scenes ever.
Right.
Yeah, that again, that's like, like we were talking about, RoboCop is one of the best death scenes ever recently, and that also, it's like you can't compare this to that. Mission to Mars, the death scenes are nice and surprising and kind of fun, but they're not like, iconic, going to stick in your brain forever like those other two.
I don't know, the one guy getting torn apart in the tornado, like the sandworm tornado.
Yeah, that was notable.
I'll remember that one going forward. I don't know if it's deathbed memory material, but if someone's like, hey, what's one of the weirdest death scenes you've ever seen in a movie? I'm like, let me tell you about this movie called Mission to Mars.
Yeah, I think the ones with the iconic ones we're talking about has to be somebody deplorable is dying in a horrible way, whereas this is just an astronaut getting stuck in a bad situation. It needs to be, Dick Jones, right, getting fired by ED-209, and now we're cooking with fire, This guy, you feel bad that he just got ripped apart by a space Martian tornado worm.
For a split second, but then you're like, that was
cool. I got over it, but I was like, oh, that sucks for that guy, whereas it doesn't suck for the guy in Total Recall. I mean, it would suck for Douglas Quaid and his girlfriend if their eyes popped out too, but that's not what happened. They somehow, their faces heal in like 20 seconds, which means the whole thing was the simulation.
It was a simulation. Yeah, absolutely. That was the Philip K. Dick part.
Yeah. So, you got any other rabbit holes you want to jump into? I guess my main one was just the isotopes, and there could have been a civilization that blew itself up, or like we see in this movie that had a catastrophic, like meteor hit or something.
The alien that cries a tear and wears a dress. I'm not sure on which of those angles to start on. Let's start with the tear. It seems weird to me that the alien is going to cry a tear in this movie, because it's almost like it grows a tear duct just to be performative for the humans really quick. But I would hope that we've evolved beyond having tear ducts at the point of having these weird etheric alien bodies, because you also get the impression that the alien's almost a hologram in a way, because it can reach inside of its body and like pull things out of it like it's Mary Poppins' magic box.
Well, yeah, it's the left behind thing. The aliens have all gone to wherever, Gary Sinise is heading off for, right? And then they have to fill him up with like breathable water, like Jim breathes water now. So maybe in that situation, it was like this like leaking fluid more than crying.
Yeah, that part was probably one of the cooler parts, and that's when I was like, maybe this is what the eyeliner is for, so that when they show Gary Sinise under this huge tank of like amniotic fluid, that we still recognize him, because you see him struggling and it looks like he's, we're going to just watch him slowly drown in front of us. But as soon as he lets the air out of his lungs, then he kind of looks around and he's like, oh, I can breathe now. I can breathe in the solution. And this is actually one of the weird rabbit hole things that I think is interesting, is that technically our lungs are filled with this kind of amniotic like style fluid when you're a fetus, right? And you get your oxygen through the umbilical cord, I believe. You don't need to use your lungs in order to get air. So technically, the human body and brain is capable of surviving as long as you can deliver oxygen to the bloodstream in some other method. And I wonder what that would feel like, though. What would it feel like to just have your lungs completely filled with fluid, but you're not drowning, right? You're not suffocating. You're still surviving. Because I guess as long as your body can get over all the initial reactions of thinking that you're drowning, you would just be waterboarding yourself indefinitely until you just get over the feeling of being waterboarded.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
about to say, isn't that waterboarding you're describing there? Although the Abyss also gets into that. They have the thing where to go deeper, he needs to use a similar kind of fluid that in that movie they've created, or someone, humans have created, to say.
I mean, that feels science fiction within the realm of becoming science fact.
I mean, at the time, it was like, well, James Cameron is using a concept that is at least valid or something. So when they did that movie, so
Freaking James Cameron, he wants to take the guns away.
yeah. Well, he also tried to drown his entire cast when he made The Abyss, but
This is like a Stanley Kubrick thing. Like you would get a better performance out of them if they've all brushed against death.
No, it's called That's What Happens When You Make a Practical Movie That Takes Place Completely Underwater. It becomes a horror show to make that movie, But and yes, I think James can get a little ornery on set. Ornery. I'm actually trying to say ordery, like giving orders. Yes.
I got one example of wasting some of the talent they've got here. So once they start slowly piecing together that this alien that's inside the mothership, that's inside the Cydonic face thing, once they realize that alien seeded the DNA on Earth that created humans, Gary Sinise says the most obvious thing ever. Like you already know what's happening, and then he goes, "They're us, and we're them." And it kind of zooms
we get
in.
That, Gary.
And it felt like one of those scenes where they're writing for the movie trailer and not for the movie. Again, it just kind of took me out of it. And it's like Gary Sinise could have delivered it differently, and it's not Gary Sinise's fault that he had to deliver this line in this weird moment next to this weird CGI alien that looked like it was straight out of like a reboot Saturday morning cartoon in the late 90s.
Are we sure this is going to work out for him? That could be kind of a bait and switch method. I mean, think about the engineers and the Alien franchise. They made humans and they hate us.
Well, I mean, all I was thinking is, isn't he just like a monkey to them? Isn't he just...
They might anal probe him and eat him. We don't know.
He's an and plus you get all the way there and they're like, oh, by the way, welcome. We don't do food. We've evolved beyond food. So we're not sure, here's a nutrient-rich amniotic fluid. I don't know. Maybe that is the next step of evolution, but he seems like he's going to be poked and prodded and maybe turned into like a circus animal of some kind.
It's kind of interesting that a year later we get AI finally comes out, which is developed by Kubrick for a long time, actually made by Steven Spielberg, right? That ends with the weird AI alien, not aliens at the end. That was why it was so confusing for people, I think, in AI there with their aliens. And maybe we weren't quite like AI minded enough yet to be like, no, those are just the future robots. Or maybe I was just stupid in 2001. I don't know. It took me a minute. But I do remember a bunch of people, were those aliens? When they saw AI at first.
I have heard AI described as Steven Spielberg's slap in the face to Stanley Kubrick, that he intentionally made the movie that Stanley Kubrick did not want AI to become as a way of just like pissing on his grave.
I piss on your grave. Yeah, that movie... I actually do like that movie a lot, but yeah, the first half definitely has more of a Kubrick vibe, and then it kind of shifts into a more Spielberg vibe. My father and I had a weird thing where it was like when you see the Blue Fairy, you put on, or maybe it's when you hit the water near the end of the movie, you switch the soundtrack to track 5 of Bjork's Vespertine. This is very specific, and then it kind of works out the rest of the way through the movie. Kind of like how you play Pink Floyd's Echoes with the last sequence of 2001.
Oh, I'll have to have my people look into this.
Yeah. Well, look closer into the 2001 one, because I really do think Pink Floyd might have been like screening the movie while they were playing the song or something, or at least editing it together or whatever, because it fits perfectly. Unlike Dark Side of the Moon and Wizard of Oz. That does not work. Echoes in the last sequence of 2001, like when it goes into a different section of the weird special effects, the music changes, that kind of thing.
It's kind of like 3-6 Mafia syncs up with the Ninja Turtles Christmas special.
Ooh, that sounds worth trying. Okay.
if you look it up, look up on YouTube, you'll find some very compelling evidence.
No, I mean, you find like weird little things that work for you, and if it's like, hey, let's screen this and like make the music we're doing fit it, let's do that. My Bloody Valentine, I was reading a book about how they made the album Loveless, and it was like Kevin Shields would just kind of sing the melody he'd want, and then the Belinda Butcher, the guitarist, would just listen to what he was singing and try and write down what she thought he was saying, and those were the lyrics. and then they don't print their lyrics, and the music's so dreamy nobody ever knows what the lyrics are anyway. So maybe that step was, yeah, probably. Who knows? Maybe they just sing different lyrics on stage every time. Hey, I know when I used to front a band, I would sometimes just sing gibberish or make this lyrics up on the spot because I had forgotten them. So,
and then you get Gary Sinise to come out wearing eyeliner
on bass. He's just on bass. He does not sing. That's got to be a bummer, though. I'm seeing the Lieutenant Dan band. Oh, there's Gary Sinise. He's playing the bass. Great.
That reminds me too that there's just the Dan band. You remember the Dan band?
Oh, right. Yes, I do remember that, because I remember when I first heard about the Lieutenant Dan band, I was similarly confused. But in my world of weird kitsch, the Lieutenant Dan band is now taken prominence, even though they're not as interesting to listen to by any means.
Right, and the Dan band, I believe, got big in the movie Old School.
Wedding Crashers. Oh, Old School and Wedding Crashers. The Dan band was better in Wedding Crashers, but Wedding Crashers is otherwise a terrible movie in my opinion. So you just watch their clip from that movie.
It's as good as an Owen Wilson and what's the other guy?
Vince Vaughn.
Vince Vaughn. It's as good of a movie that you could expect out of the two of them.
Just Old School is better, is what maybe saying. Okay.
Old School is definitely
That's
better.
what I'm saying. Yeah. Also, I've only seen Wedding Crashers.
It has the better Wilson brother.
Yeah.
That's Wilson.
Oh, yeah, that one is Luke. Okay. I've warmed up to Luke over the years. So, yeah, at first I was like, who's this guy? I want my own Wilson. I've gotten it. I think Idiocracy did a lot for Luke Wilson, Like, oh, I can follow this guy now. I see where he's going.
Yeah, do you want the pathetic Idiocracy guy, or do you want the broken-nosed suicide guy?
It depends on the day. Total Eclipse of the Heart is Wedding Crashers. So that the Dan band is doing Total Eclipse of the Heart and Wedding Crashers. Is that correct? Do you remember? Yeah, because they only do 80s Billy Joel in Old School, right? Or is it the other way around? Now I'm confused.
I think it was the other way around. I'm pretty sure that it was Old School that we hear Total Eclipse of the Heart.
You might be right. I might be totally crossing wires. In which case, I'll just throw Wedding Crashers completely under the bus in my world.
Okay,
you can keep it if you want it. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Now I got to turn that back to Mission to Mars, I guess. Yeah, we're talking about actors. Makes sense. Anywhere else you want to go with this one?
I think we can bring this one back home. Actually,
okay.
There's a little bit of a ... at the end of this. It's not clear how or if they actually make it all the way back to Earth at this point, having been through all these different things. It seems like the odds are still completely stacked against them, because at the end of this movie, Gary Sinise, he leaves with the aliens, right? Which is a very selfish dick move, because they clearly need as much help as they can get in order to survive, because all they have to go back to again is this tiny little like luggage vessel, like a storage vessel that has barely enough oxygen in it for one or two people, yet they're going to somehow get all the way back home. And it's just weird how they leave it on that.
At least Cheadle and Connie Nielsen got the offer, though, right? They said no, so they chose to go into the tin can. Jesus O'Connell was not with them at the time, right? He was back on the ship.
Right, but I mean, like, how are they getting all the way back to Earth? Like,
I guess
they
it would
had to abandon the actual ship.
Would it be more of a dick move if the three of them went with the aliens and left, Chris O'Connell's hanging in that shed or whatever? That might have been a bigger, dick move. I don't know.
Well, he's ready to leave without him, right? He's ready to.
Okay. So did Cheadle and Connie Nielsen make the wrong decision then?
Was Gary Sinise the only one that was allowed to go, or did they have enough seats for everyone if everyone decided
No,
to go?
I had the impression they were all invited and the other two said no. So.
And the aliens are like, what, you got something better to do?
They should have, because they didn't,
Dirty
did they?
monkeys.
Yeah, I guess if Chris O'Donnell was ready to be the new Cheadle stuck on Mars or whatever, then and then they have to send another ship out to save him. Is that how it works?
I feel that there's another interesting movie inside this movie that we don't get to see, and that was
Martian?
Don Cheadle's slow descent into madness. I feel
I'll say The Martian.
that could be a really fun version. I guess we did get it, but yeah, we had Matt Damon instead of Don
Different
Cheadle.
actor, yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's fun to watch Damon go nuts in space too. He does that in multiple movies. Nuts in space. There we go. Pigs in space. That's where things go really wrong. Just to bring it back to the Muppets or whatever. No, that was a different podcast where I was talking about the Muppets. Oops.
That's the one with the police in space, right?
Yeah, police in space. I'm just lost in space. Okay, I have to stop this. Break it down. You want to break this one down? Land the lander. We got a reusable rocket this time.
I think that if the ride was 1/10 as cool as this movie, then it would actually have lines waiting for it instead of just being one of those. There's not a line on this one. I guess let's give this thing a shot.
And then you regret it.
And then you regret it. This movie, I didn't regret. I actually it starts out really strong because, again, we're immediately talking about Cydonia. We're talking about aliens. We're talking about DNA manipulation. You see bodies completely torn apart and dismembered. You see a stigmata scene where Jesus O'Connell gets the little stigmata, and then they have to use his blood to find where the leak is in the ship. They use Dr. Pepper to find the other leak. There's just so many really iconic scenes in this movie. I can't believe that I hadn't seen it before, especially with the star-studded cast. All that said, I'd still probably give it like a 6 out of 10, but it's like a worthy watch 6 out of 10.
I would go up to 7, but that's because it has like shiny, stuff that catches my attention. So
It's got that a 90s CGI shiny stuff too, where you're like, the lighting does not match the blood.
This is a kind of one of those weird twinish films. I don't know. Well, actually, that's a very different setup and stuff. I'm just John Carpenter's, another big like kind of genre director the next year, auteur genre guy. John Carpenter makes Ghosts of Mars the next year, just for auteur films on Mars. It's kind of weird. That's the one with Ice Cube on Mars. More of a horror movie, more of a flop. This one was 100 million production, 111 box office. So once you consider everything, that's a flop. Ghosts of Mars, 28 million budget, much smaller, and 14 at the box office. I guess that's why John Carpenter doesn't get to make movies anymore. Well, he doesn't want to. He wants to play video games, I think. So,
Me too.
Yeah, video games and music. So whatever. He's 77. He could do that if he wants. But is Ghosts of Mars actually his last film? Did he make anything after that? Sorry, I have to check now.
I really do think that video games are the next movies.
Ghosts of Mars was actually his last film. What do you know? Okay. Oh, he made something called The Ward, but that barely counts as a film. Okay, I have heard him saying they put me on the credits as an executive producer and then they pay me money and I don't do anything. So when they made 2005's The Fog, which is an absolute disaster of the movie, or don't you hate that they made this remake and it's bad? And he's like, no, I get the residual checks.
He's living the dream, man. Yeah,
he's living the dream.
Crappy versions as you want.
Okay, and then what is De Palma up to these days? I feel like that's another guy. Is he alive? De Palma is he's alive. He's 84. Has he made anything recently? Career. Oh no, I'm doing that thing where I'm just like, he still makes movies. Okay. He's slowed down a lot, but he still gets to make a movie every once in a while. But I just feel like, none of these are all kind of like under the radar movies. So I think this kind of is his last movie that people really noticed.
Mission
Snake
to Mars
Eyes
was?
Yeah, he made Snake Eyes, he made Mission to Mars, and in 2002 he made Femme Fatale, a movie that I don't remember existing. I mean, I remember Snake Eyes existing. That had a cool opening tracking scene.
Oh, and also Nicolas Cage.
He made a Black Dahlia movie. Oh, it's currently the last movie De Palma is direct with backing from Hollywood, 2006. So it is interesting how these guys that were like making a movie every year or two in the 20th century can't do it in the 21st. That's a weird conundrum,
Yeah, transition to video games, man. That's the next frontier for movies. Is interactive.
There's a David Lynch method that was, in 2015. It's like Netflix will throw money at you if you're willing to make a TV series. So he made a TV series instead of a movie. So I guess you stream now is how you do it. I will maintain that one of David Fincher's best movies is actually The Killer, a movie which no one saw because it ended up being like a Netflix exclusive and showed in like 3 theaters or something. See The Killer?
I don't think so. No, I don't even know if I've heard of it.
Exactly. It's a David Fincher movie starring Michael Fassbender, and Tilda Swinton has her Tilda Swinton scene in it. It's really good. I highly recommend The Killer. Even more than Mission to Mars, I'll recommend The Killer.
Yeah, 2023. No, I've never even heard of this before.
It doesn't exist, and it should. Is it as good as Zodiac and Fight Club? It's not that good, but it's pretty good. So, big recommend. I guess we'll wrap this one up for today. If you want to go ahead and plug people, like they're going to plug Gary Sinise when he makes it to his new alien home.
Yeah, I've got a couple other series. Matt mentioned, you probably already heard it, with the Cartoon Cabal. I've also got one called Under the Docks, where we go back and we rewatch classic 80s and 90s conspiracy documentaries and kind of figure out how they hold up over the last 2 to 3 decades. They're all on my YouTube. And then if you want to go to the Paranoid American Patreon, you get advanced access to all this stuff, sometimes by as much as 2 months or more, along with free comic downloads and even access to occultdecode.com, which I just added a new movie decoder where you can put in the name of any movie, and then it'll give you a list of the cast, their real names, their characters' names, how old they were when the movie was released in theaters, how long until the movie release until they died for the ones that have died, and it shows you like gematria and stuff, breakdowns. It's kind of like a schizo paranoid's dream website. So you should go and check that out too, occultdecode.com.
Well, they broke Box Office Mojo on IMDb several years ago, so you can have a different kind of fun doing that for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm always looking to add more stuff to it. So maybe adding box office numbers and budget numbers would be another cool way to just find patterns in the system.
And if you can do that, adjusting for inflation, like this movie made this much, and this is how it actually compares. That's what Box Office Mojo used to let you do, and now you can't. I think even if you pay for it, you can't. So there you go. You'll get an audience if you can throw in those features.
Consider it in the works.
Over here, I do lots of podcasting at podcastius.org. Films of Filth. We talk about really good movies, really bad movies. If you go way back in the feed, you'll hear me and my British co-host going on about Total Recall and back in the year 2020, I think. So, dig into that. And what else was I going to say? I don't know. Talking about Severance over at Imprisoned in Prison. So, people seem to be into that recently. I'm into that recently. I think they want to give it all the Emmys this year or whatever. So, go dig that. Okay. Are you going to choose the green mission or is it green and orange? What are the colors you choose on Mission Space?
Oh man, I mean the one where your limbs fly off mid-flight. That's the one to go for.
That's the one to go for. Okay, red mission, I believe.
All American stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all the land and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you smile and snicker. False flags and secret societies, all of these and more on our sticker sheets.
Explore the unique with Paranoid American sticker sheets. Unearth tales of cryptids, cults, and mysteries through each sticker. These won't last long. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
We're all American stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all of that and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you societies. All of these and more on our sticker sheets.
What the heck are you waiting for? Discover the extraordinary with Paranoid American sticker sheets. From cryptids in the night to cults out of sight, each sticker is a unique find. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
Paranoid. Yo. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain? Give you the flight, my plane. Paper, the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real to real. You will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hey, maybe your language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bomb distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Matters not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when a beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.